components and props. Firstly, let's recap. In the previous session, we introduced React.js. So then we have seen about how to create element using React.js, React.create element, and also to display it, we make use of the React DOM.render. So then we understood about JSX, where we can create elements using HTML-like syntax. We also understood about how to embed variables and expressions in the JSX elements. Then we have seen about nested JSX elements. Coming to this session, so firstly, we'll understand about components, where we'll understand about various concepts like composability and reusability. Then we'll see about props. We'll see how to pass props and access the props. And finally, we'll see about how to create a React app, right? Generally, when it comes to building the real world applications, right? So we need a little bit project setup that needs to be done. We'll see how to do that. Okay. To set the code playground for today's session, you need to run this command. With this, the necessary resources will be downloaded. So firstly, let's understand about components. So a component is a JavaScript function which returns a JSX element. So when it comes to JavaScript function, it can return any value, right? So if a JavaScript function returns a JSX element, then it's called as a component. Okay, clear? So here you can see, right? We have a welcome, which is a JavaScript function, an arrow function, right? Where it's returning a JSX element. So welcome here is a component, right? So there you can see it's returning a JSX element. So that's the reason it's a component, right? Since we write it within the script tag, right? So it'll be considered as a component. Okay. So here the component name should always start with a capital letter. It's very important, right? So there you can see when it comes to the welcome component, the first alphabet, which is W, is in uppercase. So the first character should be in capital letter, right? That's very important. Now, coming to rendering the component, right? So directly we can have this component in the void HTML syntax. Okay, there you can see Angular Breeze will provide the component and slash this, right? So that's just void type of syntax, right? If you write that, then the welcome component will get rendered. Okay, there you can see you'll get an output in this manner. So let's give this a try. Okay. So here in the index.html, you can see, right, we have a script tag. So within this, we can start writing the JSX code. So firstly, I want to create a component. So it's a welcome component. Okay. So a component is nothing but a JS function which returns a JSX element, right? So let's return a JSX element. So which is say h1. Okay. So here we would just want to say hello user. Okay. And a little bit styling. So here we use class name, right? So here the class name that we are going to use is message. Okay, in this manner. Okay, we have created a JSX element that we are returning. So since here this function is returning a JSX element, so welcome is a component. Now to render this, so we'll make use of the React DOM.render. So here when it comes to providing the component, so we'll make use of the void syntax. So here in this manner, we'll specify the component. So with this, the component will get rendered. Okay, and then coming to this, where should it be present? So within this, right? So we have a document dot get element by id of root. Okay, that's it. Okay, so now let's have a look at this preview, and then you can see we have hello user. Okay, so this step is done. Okay, so now let's say if the component name starts with a lowercase, let's understand what will happen. So in that case, there you can see here the welcome is there, the first character is in lowercase, right? So then basically it will be considered as a HTML element. So the React will consider it as a HTML element. Rather than considering it as a component, it will consider it as a HTML element. So then what will happen if you inspect the code, if you see, so that is considered as a HTML element, and there you can see, right? So that's the issue actually. So that's the reason why the component name should start with a capital letter. It's very important. Be careful about that. When you're creating a component, ensure that the component name starts with a capital letter. Okay. There you can see, in case if you give it as a small letter, right, it's given that that particular element is unrecognized because it's considered as a HTML element. So the first character should be in capitals. Okay, so we understood about the component, right? Now let's understand about props. So React allows us to pass information to the component using the props. So for the component, if you want to pass some information, you can pass that information using the props. Let's see how. So when it comes to declaring attributes to the HTML tag, how do we do it? We provide the attribute equal to value, right, to the HTML tag. Similarly, for the component, we can pass the props in the same way. Okay, so the component, so then we'll provide the prop name equal to the corresponding value. Prop name equal to corresponding value. Okay, so just like how we declare attributes for the HTML tag, similarly, we pass the props to the component. Okay, let's see an example. So here you can see, so for the welcome component, we want to pass the props. Okay, one is name equal to Rahul, another prop is greeting, so greeting equal to hello. So we have passed props in this manner. Okay, it's just like declaring attributes for the HTML tag. Okay, now we have passed the props, but we need to access these props in the component, right? So how do we access it? So the props that we pass will be sent as an argument to the component. Okay, there you can see. Previously in the arrow function, there were no arguments. Now the props that we have sent will be passed as an argument to the component. Okay, so there we can access the props. Okay, there you can see we have the props, and if you print it, there you can see we have the name as Rahul and greeting as hello. So then from this, we can access the props appropriately through object destructuring. That's an object with the name and the greeting. So we can access them through object destructuring. Okay, and then we can make use of those variables, right? And we can appropriately embed them in the J6 element. Okay, so shall we try this out? Okay. So here, as we understood, right, what do we want to do? Okay, so we want to pass some information to this welcome component. So we can pass this through props. So how do we pass them? Okay, so here, just like how we write attributes for the HTML tag, similarly, we will pass props to the component. So the first one is say name. Okay, say I'm sending Pranita. Okay, and then another prop is say greeting. Okay, so let's say I want to say hi. Okay, clear? So I've passed these two, right? Now coming to accessing these, right? So the props that we pass will be sent as an argument to the component, right? So as a parameters here, we can access them through that. So the props will be sent here, and within this we can access that. So let's do that. So this is our arrow function, right? So these props that have been passed, right, will be accessible through these parameter. So it will be like an object. So we can do object destructuring there. So name and say greeting. So these are the prop names, right? So we have provided that equal to props. Okay, so now we have the name and greeting. Appropriately, we can make use of them. So we'll embed them here in the J6 element. So firstly, let's say greeting. Okay, and then now let's provide the name. Okay, so we have embedded them into the J6 element, and finally that will get returned, right? So we have to write a return here. Okay. So you understood this, right? So what did we do? So firstly, to this particular component, we have passed some props, name equal to Pranita, greeting equal to hi. And then these props will be sent as an argument to the welcome component. So here we can access them. So through object destruction, we got name and greeting. Appropriately, we embedded them in the file, right? So in the J6 element, and then we got the greeting and the name here. Okay. So now let's have a look at this. So there you can see I have hi Pranita, right? Clear? So we understood about how to pass the props and also how to access the props, right? And we have seen this output. Okay. Here, when it comes to the component, there's one important point. So component is actually a piece of reusable code that you can use in various parts of the application. Okay. So it's like a reusable code. So this thing you can use in the various parts of application, and appropriately you can make use of it. Okay. So based on the props that you send, you can make it work accordingly. Okay. So it's like a reusable part of code. A component is a reusable part of code. That's very important. Okay. So here, if you see the example of the welcome. Okay. So here, when it comes to the welcome component, we are sending some props. We are getting name and greeting, and appropriately we are displaying the greeting and the name, right? So here, when it comes to making use of it, so there you can see. So once we have sent the props as name equal to Rahul, greeting equal to hello, so with that we'll get hello Rahul. Whereas again we made use of this welcome component where name equal to Ram and greeting equal to hi, then we'll get hi Ram, right? So in this manner we can actually make use of these components, right, in multiple times. It's actually a reusable thing. Okay, so reusable code. So wherever necessary we can appropriately send the props and make it work accordingly, right? So that's the advantage of the components, because it is reusable. As we previously understood, reusable code is very, very important, right? So that we can make it use in various ways, right? So that's the advantage here. So here to display hello Rahul, for hi Ram, we are just making use of the same component, which is welcome. Okay, so let's give this a try. Okay. So as we understood, one important advantage of component is that it's reusable. Like here in our case, so this welcome component is actually a reusable one, right? So here we have displayed a hi Pranita with this, right? So here, since we understood, when it comes to the React render, it will only render one element at a time. So that's the reason we are writing in this manner. So here within the div element, we are again going to make use of the welcome component. Now we'll provide name as say Rahul. Okay, and then let's say the greeting that we want to send is say hello. Okay, and like this. Okay, you understood this, right? So the same welcome component we are able to reuse, right, in this manner. Or yeah, let's first have a look at the output. So there you can see I have hi Pranita, hello Rahul. In this manner, appropriately you can make use of this component, right? Let's say here you want to again say Pranita, but here let's say you want to say bye. Okay, so like this, you can make use of the same component. So here we are basically reusing this component, right? That's the advantage. Okay. So as we understood, when it comes to the component, and it's a reusable code. Okay, so based on the props that we send, we can appropriately make it work. Okay, there you can see the result. Okay, another important property when it comes to components is composable. Actually, components are composable. That is, in one component you can make use of another component. So within a component you can use another component, right? So that is nothing but components are composable. Let's understand how. Okay, so here you can see we have a welcome component that we previously created. So now we have created another greetings component. So when it comes to the greetings component, so there you can see in that we are making use of the welcome component, right? So within the greetings component, we are using another component which is welcome, right? So that's the advantage here. Okay, so within a component we can make use of another component. Okay, so there you can see. Let's give this a try. So here we already have the welcome component. Now we want to create another component. So constant say greetings. Okay, so now when it comes to this, right? So here basically when it comes to this thing, we want to return let's say hi Rahul, hi Pranita, something like this. Okay, so firstly for that we'll return a particular nested JSX element. Okay, so here within this we are going to make use of the welcome component. So welcome, say name equal to Pranita. Okay, and then say greeting is equal to hi. Okay, so again we want to make use of this. Say welcome. Now let's say name equal to Rahul. Okay, so then say greeting equal to say hi or say hello. Okay, so in this manner. So what we are doing here, okay, so greeting is a component, right? So within this component we are again making use of welcome component, right? So basically here these components are composable, right? So that's the reason we are able to do this. Okay, so now let's call this. So there's no need of all of this, right? So let's write greetings in this manner. Okay, so you can see here we made use of the welcome component within the greetings component, right? Okay, so now let's save this and let's have a look at the preview. So there you can see hi Pranita, hello Rahul, like this, right? So we understood about the two important concepts related to components. First thing is reusability. So these components are actually a reusable piece of code, and also about composable. That is, we can make use of a component in another component, and we have seen this result. Okay. So now let's proceed further to creating real world apps, right? So when it comes to creating a real world apps, right, generally a lot of setup will be required because we'll be using a large number of components. They should be properly organized, right? So all this requires a little bit of setup, right? So to make this simple, Facebook has already provided us a third-party package, Create React App. So using this, so the necessary setup, so instead of us going through all these setup steps for each and every application that we create, so we can directly make use of this third-party package. With this, the necessary setup, the basic setup will be created beforehand. Okay, so that's the advantage here. Instead of every developer doing the setup required, instead of we doing setup for each and every application that we create, we can make use of this third-party package. With this, the necessary setup will get created. Okay, so for this, firstly, we need to install this Create React App. So the command is npm install -g Create React App. So we are having -g because we want this to be applied for all the projects that we are going to create. So there you can see. Right, it will be created globally in our environment. So this is done. So after that, so the next thing is we need to create an app using this. Okay, so for that we need to write create react app. Then we have to provide the app name, say my app, and then -- use npm. Okay, so it will take some time, say 3 to 5 minutes based on your network bandwidth, right? So then the necessary setup will get created, and then finally we'll have our my app. Okay, clear? So once the setup is done, so you'll be having a folder structure in this manner. So there you can see some additional folders have come up. So within the my app, so there is public, there's src, and there are some more files there. There you can see readme, package.json. All these have been added beforehand. Okay. So when it comes to the public folder, so in the public folder, we generally maintain the assets related to the folder, assets related to the project. By assets, I mean the images, the icons, the videos, right? All these are called the assets. So we generally keep the assets in the public folder. Whereas the components, the React components that we are building will be placed in the src folder. So we generally organize the components that we create in the src folder. So the majority of the code that we write will be inside the src folder. Okay. So when you're opening a particular file, right? So a pop-up like this will appear. Click on allow, right? So with this, by clicking on this, so everything will be working as expected. It's suggestible to click this. So do click like this allow button. Okay. So once you're done with these steps, so next navigate to the my app directory and run the npm start command. So once you run this, so the server will get started. And if you navigate to localhost colon 3000, you'll be able to see an output in this manner. Okay. So let's have a look at this. Okay. So I have already created, I've already installed the Create React app, and also I've run the Create React app, right? So Create React app, right? So the command that we have seen previously, so the Create React app, and then we have to provide the app name, which is say my app, and then use npm. So we have already run this command. So because it will take some time, I have run this before and I've showed it to you. So there you can see, once you run this command, it will take some time, 3 to 5 minutes, right? After this, a my app directory like this will get created. So once observe this. So within the my app directory, there you can see there are various folders present. There's public. So in the public folder, we generally maintain the files, the images, or maybe videos. All this will be present in this. Okay. So will be generally placed in this public. Okay. And when it comes to the SRC, so in the SRC, the modules that we write, okay, the components that we build, so all these will be placed inside the SRC folder. Okay. So we'll organize the components that we write within the SRC. Okay. So we understood about these, right? So now what we'll do is, so we'll run the npm install command and see. Okay, npm start command and see. Okay, firstly we have to navigate to the my app directory. So in the my app directory, run the npm start command. Okay, so by running this, so the server will get started. Okay, so and then to the localhost colon 3000, there we'll be able to see the output. Okay, so there you can see the server got started. So and now we can access it through localhost colon 3000. So let's access this. Okay. So there you can see the React app, and you can see like this, and then there's some text and all of this, right? Okay. So already this part is present. The code related to this is present. So that's the reason we got this output. So to run the server, to start the server, you need to run the command npm start. With this, the server will start and we'll be able to see the output. Okay, clear? So we have seen this output, right? Okay. So in the SRC folder, there is a file called index.js. So this index.js is actually the starting point of the application. So this is where the application starts, right? So this is the starting point of the application. So when you run npm start command, so then actually the index.js file will run. So in the index.js file, the various other modules will get imported, like app.js, there's index.css, all these will get imported into the index.js. And then the index.js file will run, and finally we'll be able to see the output, right? So the index.js is actually the starting point of the application. When you run npm start, the index.js file will run. So into the index.js file, the various other modules will get imported. So this index.js is actually the starting point of the application. But actually, the major application part of code we'll be writing in app.js file. The application logic, we write it in app.js file. So index.js is the starting point, but the application related logic, all that code, we'll be writing in app.js file. Okay, and the app.js file will be imported into the index.js. Okay, so if you open index.js on the top, you'll be able to see this line, import app from ./app. So basically we are importing the app.js into index.js, and we'll be able to see the output, right? So when you run npm start, the index.js will be executed, but the major application logic, we will be writing that in app.js file. Since the app.js is being imported into index.js, so that's the reason we are able to see the output. Okay, clear? So let's have a look at this. So here you can see, right? So firstly, so here in the source directory, so we have index.js file. When you click on this, so you'll get a pop-up in this manner. Click on allow so that everything will work as expected. So now in the index.js file, right? So there you can see this is actually the starting point of the application. So when you run npm start, this file will run. Okay. So but the major application code will be writing in app.js file. So that app.js file will be imported into index.js. So there you can see. So we imported app.js into index.js. That is the reason we are able to see the output. But the logic related to the output, the entire application, we'll be writing in app.js file. Okay, there you can see. Right? So the output that you're able to see right now, this entire thing, this text you can see, that is present in the app.js file. Okay, so I'll show you that. Okay, there you can see. So edit, so and so, save to reload, all this line where you can see. So this is actually here. Okay, clear? So you understood this, right? Okay. So the application logic we'll be writing in app.js file, but this app.js will get imported into index.js, and when we run npm start command, so this index.js will get executed. Appropriately, this has been imported, so we are able to see the output. Okay. So we understood this, right? So one point to note here is that here the files are with .js extension, but all of these are ES6 modules. When it comes to the React, we'll be using the ES6 modules, but the file extension will be .js. As we previously understood, for ES6 modules, it should be .mjs, right? But in React, they are ES6 modules, but the extension will be .js. Okay, that's a point to note. So when we are trying to export or import any of the components, so we'll use the ES6 syntax. Okay, there you can see when it comes to default exports, we write export default and we'll provide the component name that we want to export. Okay, generally if you write component in one particular file, we'll be exporting so that we'll use it somewhere else, right? So for that, we directly make use of the ES6 syntax, which is export default, and we'll provide the component name. Whereas in case of the named exports, we need to provide the export keyword before the function declaration. Okay, before the component declaration. Okay. So we understood this, right? Okay. So when it comes to this index.html, right? So in the public directory, there's index.html. So that is a final output when you see, right? So everything will get attached to the div element root with ID root. So all the content that we write, so that will be getting attached to the div element with the ID root. Okay, so whatever you write, whatever elements that you create, so they all will get attached to the div element with the ID root. Okay, so once you see the output, so if you do inspect element, you will be able to observe this. Okay, clear? So we understood about the various things, right? About the folder structure and about the various things present there. Okay. So we also understood that when we do create React app, when we make use of this, so it will do some pre-configuration. It will do some setup beforehand. So let's understand what will come with this setup. Okay. So there are various advantages like live editing. Okay. So ESLint, Prettier, Babel, and then this Webpack. These are the various things that come beforehand, a pre-configured tools. As we make the changes and save the file, immediately the changes will get reflected. Okay, so that's one advantage. Let's have a look at that. Okay, so let's say here in my app.js, so I've written and saved to reload. So let me say hello here, hello world, something like this. I added some text. Now I'm saving. So automatically, right? So here the hello world has been added. So whatever changes you make, the corresponding changes will get reflected here. Okay, this is live editing. Okay, so you need not do any other step. Just make changes, save the file, and then it will get updated. Okay. Another thing is ESLint. So this is another tool. So using this, basically the source code that we write, when we write, so there might be some syntax errors that we do or some programming errors. So then and there itself, it will show warnings and errors so that we can correct them. So instead of waiting till we see the output and realize, so when we are writing itself, it will show us the errors and the bugs and some syntax errors. We can then and there correct it. Okay. So with that, a lot of time will get saved, right? We need not wait till the end until we see the output and realize the mistake. Okay, so that's an advantage. As we go further, you will be able to realize how advantage these things are. Okay, so another thing is Prettier. So using the Prettier, so here consistent style will get enforced, right? When different developers are working on a particular project. So if the style of writing is consistent, right, then it's easy to understand for anyone, right? The code will become more readable. So the indentation, the spacing, the use of semicolons, all this. So the Prettier tool will enforce this consistent styling so that it will be easier to understand and consistent between the various developers. Okay, so another tool is Babel. As we understood, it's a JavaScript compiler. So when we write the JSX code, it needs to be compiled into the JavaScript and finally the output should be shown, right? So here the Babel will come pre-configured. So directly the JS code will be compiled into the regular JavaScript. Okay, another one is Webpack. So using this Webpack tool, what happens is that it will stitch all the modules that we have written into a single file. Okay, so we'll be writing when it comes to real world, right? So we'll be writing various modules and a lot of components, right? So this Webpack will stitch them together into a single file, right? Single or a group of files. This process is called bundling. So there's a lot of advantage of this. Okay, so this way, so finally when we render, so that index.js, we'll be able to see the output. So the Webpack will stitch a group. When you actually inspect the element, at the end, you'll be able to see script bundle.js, right? That is just referring to the Webpack. Okay, so we understood about the various pre-configured tools that come with the React app and the advantages of having these tools. Right, so this is the end of today's session. Now let me summarize what we understood in today's session. So firstly, we understood about components. Component is nothing but a JavaScript function which returns a JSX element. Okay, so we understood about how to create a component. Then we have seen about the properties of it. Firstly, reusability. So components are actually reusable, right? That's one advantage. Another one is we can make use of a component in another. That is, components are composable. Okay, we understood about these. Then we understood about props. So to pass some information to the components, we can pass them through props. So we understood about how to pass props. So it's just like how we define attributes to a HTML tag, we can pass props to a component. So then we understood about accessing the props, right? When it comes to accessing the props, using the function arguments, you can access the props. The initial setup, how to do it, and how to start the application. Okay. So in the next session,